welcome to episode 45, if you can believe it, of From the Middle. We are three middle-class guys in the middle of America with a point of view that's somewhere in the middle. I think there was another line in there, but I forgot it. It doesn't matter. You know what's up. We are super excited for episode 45. We have my good friend, Michael Watson. We're going to call him Mike for the rest of the episode. CCAD, buddy, that's Columbus College of Art and Design. Owner of Freestyle Komics, I believe partner of Short Fuse Media. Mike, what else? What did I miss, man? How do you want to introduce yourself?
Well, they say I'm the most enthusiastic person in comics.
Yep.
I'm the host on Chat and Draw, one half of The Good, the Bad, and the Nerdy with my partner, Katie May. And that's about it, man. I make comics.
We thought you would be a perfect guest. You are a big geek like us. I don't know of a fandom that exists that you're not a part of. You are into everything geeky. You go and speak at conventions. You're one of the most ambitious guys I know, and you've always been that way since I met you at CCAD. So I just thought that this would be a good opportunity for us to have a guest with a little bit of a different background and just share with us about anything and everything you're excited about in life right now.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Well, thank you, first off, for having me on the show. I appreciate it, man. I love being on podcasts. They are pretty cool. I'm digging this. I'm digging this setup. Your opening line was really cool. I like how you worked that in there. I was wondering, like, what the middle meant, and that was really dope.
Yeah. By the way, while we're on the topic of just laying some context and background, your background is putting mine to shame. I need to step up my action figure game. That is intense, man.
Oh man, I paid the price for this. Back in college, I didn't realize what an overpayment check was or what it really meant. And you know, I had all these scholarships, and I had some grants, and I had some loans, and they're like, "Hey, you got $3,200 left over. You want to put that on your next semester, or you want that in a check?" What? That's an option? Send me that bread. And you know, down here in Columbus, we got we had Meyer. I've never been to a Meyer till I got to Columbus. I was out in that mug shopping for toys. So I definitely paid the price, and you know, I found out about that quickly, close to graduation. I got to repay back all that money.
Yeah, they want that back. That Sally Mae lady will hunt you down.
Yeah. Right.
By way of introduction and sort of just laying the groundwork for people, seriously, is there a popular fandom that you aren't interested in?
Doctor Who.
Okay.
I respect it, and I've tried to get into it. I actually have a really cool story. I was doing some photography down at one of the fan comic book conventions down in Louisville. And so I was working with this group, and we had these digital backgrounds already set up, and like this guy trained me. I mean, he was super good at Photoshop. He trained me how to edit a background and a person in like 5 minutes. Put lightsaber effects on them, lighting, all that stuff, like really, really quick. And so we were doing photos for people, and I noticed that like a lot of the stars that they had there sucked, as in like taking pictures. I'm like, come on, you guys are actors and actresses. You could at least act happy. I mean, why even come to this event if you're not going to smile or act like you want to be here? Yeah. And this kid was there, man. He was freaking lit. He was just so excited. Had his sonic screwdriver, and the Doctor Who actor came down. Now he did not have an actual show. I was told he was in one of the movies, and he was like the medical doctor in the military or whatever. And but he was extremely popular from that one showing. And this dude had to be, I don't know, 20 yards away, and he saw this kid, and I looked, and I saw him reach in his pocket, pull out his freaking screwdriver, start twirling it around, and pointing it down at the kid. Kind of like got up a little pace, got up here and was like, "Hey, you ready to take these pictures?" And the kid was like, "Yes." And like, I mean, they just freaking put up their screwdrivers at the camera, and they were all in these poses and stuff. And I was just like, "Oh my God, this is it. This is exactly how you're supposed to be in these photos." And I happened to get their set to edit. And as he was walking away, I was, "Excuse me, sir, I know you're busy, but I just want to show you this picture you just took with the young man." And it was like a pure gold picture of just him and this kid just freaking loving meeting his hero, like his favorite character. And I said, man, this is exactly what it's about. This is what comic book conventions are about. And I just want to thank you so much for being this way. And I'm going to tell you, man, I am not a Doctor Who fan, but because of you, I am going to go home and I'm going to try to get into this fandom. I'm going to try. I'm going to give it the good, honest go. And I did. And it just did not work for me.
You weren't feeling it.
I am not. I mean, it's got its moments, but I just don't get it.
You know why they show up at those conventions? They got a Sally Mae bill on their comic. They got to pay the bills too, man.
They're trying to pay for their Star Wars action figure collection.
That's right.
Sally Mae got them all. Sally Mae got them all.
Speaking of conventions, Mike, we just did an episode and we covered some unpopular opinions or really things that people might be surprised to learn about us. And one of the ones that I shared is that, and I don't even know if I've shared this with you, like I never really got into comics. I would flip through them as a kid just to look at the artwork.
Yeah.
I never really bought them. I definitely never like traded them or put them in plastic. And the other thing I never really got into being on the fringe of geek culture was like conventions, other than Dylan and I went to one Star Wars convention right before Revenge of the Sith came out.
Okay.
So this might be a little different audience for you because, you know, sometimes I imagine you go to these conventions and people are trying to trip you up in trivia. And we're just like, you know, we're huge fans of the MCU. Well, two of us are. And, you know, grew up with those awesome 90s cartoons like X-Men and things like that. But, you know, tell us more about comics. How did you, I mean, you've probably been asked this question a million times. Like, how did you decide that that was a world as a young kid, that this was something that you want to go into as high level or as detailed as you want? And then we'll kind of get into sort of what the landscape of comics looks like today, both from a, you know, I know you posted a social media article yesterday, like, are comics dying? And then what it looks like for big houses versus, you know, you running your own indie shop. So,
okay. Well, the whole decision to make comic books, kind of a two-sided thing. I decided I always wanted to animate because I was really big into cartoons and I was always drawing Voltron and the Thundercats and stuff like that. And I had a really cool, like, I'm just like realizing it as I got older. Like, my 6th grade teacher was bomb. Like, she paid attention to all that stuff with us in class, and like she brought in a documentary for us to watch about animation. And it broke down what an animator's job was. And I was like, oh my God, no, that's entirely too much drawing. I don't have the patience for that. And I thought comic books were actually stupid. And my best friend at the time, Tom, said, we can't be friends unless you like comic books. And he brought me he brought me a stack of books to read. And he said, there better be at least one of these books in here that you like if you want us to be friends. And I was like, man, are you serious right now? He was like, as a heart attack. Like, he was for real. And I went home. Yeah. Excuse me. I went home and started reading them. And literally, like, the last comic book that I got to was X-Men number 16. Omega Red fighting the Blue Squad of the X-Men, Psylocke, Jubilee, Wolverine, Iceman, Cyclops, and Colossus was in it. For the fate of Ileana, Colossus' sister. And that is the book that made me fall in love with comic books. I just like, that short little Canadian with the butter knives coming out of his hands. I was like, man, he has the lamest powers, but like, he's like the most boss character on this team. And like, everyone else got taken out and he was like, he kept getting up. And I could relate to that because like, I was short and I got picked on. I didn't have any superpowers. I wanted to be a boss like him. I wanted to have that indomitable will to get back up when I get punched down and stuff. So I kind of modeled myself after that. And like just that first time of reading those books and seeing that artwork is like something that I wanted to recreate or have somebody experience reading the comic books that I would make.
So what age are you? You said you're like 6th grade at this point?
11.
Okay.
And like after that was it. Well, me and Tom, I came back. I was like, oh my God, I love this. Where can I get more of it? Me and Tom started a comic book company in 6th grade where we just basically redrew old X-Men stories. We got the girls to color because we thought girls would be the best at coloring. Not trying to be sexist. I didn't know any better, okay? I wasn't trying to genderize roles. But that was how we set it up. The guys drew
Wow.
it. The girls colored it. We had our little staff meetings at lunch over our pork and beans. And our teacher saw that we were doing this. She talked to the principal. We had a little 10-minute store set up after lunch where classes took turns coming to buy our books and buy candy and popcorn. Our 6th grade teacher was legit, man. So she was the catapult for me, her and Tom.
But that tells me, I mean, you were entrepreneurial from an early age for you to think with that lens on, right? Like, because most people would just draw in a corner by themselves, but you're like, how do I monetize this? And you were macking on those 11-year-old girls.
Oh, I mean, I was trying to get at Betsy Lee, man. Betsy Lee was super cute. And anything I could do to get at, sit next to her at the lunch table, like, hey, you want to do these colors? You're the best colorist in our class.
If you keep this up, things might work out well for you. So how do you transition to art school? We've shared, I mean, early on in our podcast, I think episode 7, I sort of shared that, I'm from a blue collar town in Northwest Ohio where everybody was a farmer or worked in a factory. And so the idea of being an artist seemed pie in the sky. And I know you have a similar sort of background, humble beginnings. Like, how did you find yourself at art school and then CCAD, one of the most at the time prestigious in the nation? I mean, what was that journey like, and how realistic did that goal seem from selling your books in the cafeteria?
I went to high school at a school called the Cleveland School of the Arts.
Yeah.
And when I first got there's an audition. There's no application process, it's just an audition. And I didn't realize this. And they have a big still life sitting in the middle of the art room. And they're like, all right, draw this. Like chairs, cloth, flowers, broken brooms. I'm like, what the heck is this, man? Come on, I'm about to draw Bugs Bunny for you, dude. Like the Ninja Turtles, I know how to draw all that. And I failed my first audition and went back home. And my mom made me draw something from life like every single day before I could draw cartoons or comic books or something like that. And so went back to the audition, passed it that second time, got into the school. I got an internship with the Cleveland Plain Dealer, internship with the Cleveland Institute of Art, and just was working on my portfolio. I was making comic books in high school. Just really trying to do whatever I can to be the best, whatever I could would make me the best comic book artist. And I was thinking about applying to Rhode Island Institute of Art. And then I think I accidentally came across CCAD because they had like a comic book class.
Yeah.
They had a comic book class being taught there, and Rhode Island didn't have that. So like my grandmother, she's super old school, man. So she's like, I don't want you leaving out, because like she's old. She don't know no better. She thinks the world out there to hurt me being a young black man. And she was like, don't go out to Rhode Island. Like she pulled me upstairs for a whole heart to heart. It's like, don't go out to Rhode Island, baby. They racist. I was like, what? Like, have you ever been to Rhode Island? No, I have not, but I just know it's Rhode Island. I'm like, you have no idea what it's like out there. It's a good school. And then over the next couple of days, I found out about CCAD having a comic book class. And not displacing what my grandmother said, but comic book class is what won it over for me. My application to Rhode Island never went in. I put all my chips on Columbus College of Art and Design. I got accepted on a scholarship down there. And going to school there, as you said, Corey, it was one of the top, it's like at the time when we were going there, it's top 5 schools in the nation. I'm sure it's still pretty much up there because they're getting crap tons of funding and things done at that school. But that school, man, I cannot speak on how amazing my experience was at that school, with the good and the bad, all of it put together. Like, it was fantastic. And being around, meeting people like Corey, I learned as much from the students of that school as I did from the teachers, if not more. It was just an incredible experience. And my teacher in high school said comic books weren't art. So that was a real pain in my butt, to say in a polite way. I was a very challenging student for him.
Yeah.
And he could not fail me because I got all my assignments done, but I still found the way to put comic books into every single piece of artwork every time. didn't care.
Okay.
And then go to CCAD and then completely be embraced by it and just see all these kids that are in the anime, video games, cartoons, comic books. It was just like, it was just like overload, man. It was incredible. And then I met a group of kids and we started making a comic book at CCAD. We did the first actual published book at CCAD called The Anthology. And from that moment on, when I was like, this is an accredited school, not like a private higher education top 5 art school, and they just printed a comic book that me and my friends made. Oh, comic books are real. They are art.
Yeah.
Let's go.
And your ambition, I mean, it was so obvious. Like outside of class, you were creating books, and I'll have Kendall and Dylan know that he upgraded from having elementary girls do his coloring to tapping guys like me on the shoulder and going, hey, you're pretty good at ink work. You should do some of this work.
You already had those lines worked out, didn't you?
Yeah. He had lots of practice at that point, but you had Hotshot and Freestyle Comics. Like you were incubating that and getting as much help, and everybody was excited to participate because they saw how ambitious you were and still are. And we're like, yeah, I'll help out, or yeah, I'll do a guest, cover for you here or there. And
Yeah.
And I think you had a lot of energy around it at that time. I think you were like a year or two ahead of me officially.
I think 2 years ahead of you.
Okay.
I think 2 years, because yeah.
So you had already a lot of traction. So when you got out, like, what were some of the steps of, like, not that it wasn't real then because you were already doing it, but like, how were you trying to break in? I know you tried to get a job with Marvel a couple different times, like not just break into the industry, but then how did you sort of decide that, you know what, I'm just going to start an independent house and just start my own studio and just start making these things myself?
That's a pretty fun story. I didn't know that. So, like I said, the good and the bad, but I absolutely love CCAD. Comic books aren't what they are now at the school or where they were. CCAD appreciated it. They knew it was an art form. They knew it was a good job field for people. But they still didn't have a whole lot of knowledge out of it outside of showing us how to draw comic books, how to tell a story and things like that, and techniques.
And sorry to cut you out, was like Joe Caroni the main guy behind that part of the curriculum?
Yeah, Daryl Banks was the teacher first, and then Daryl Banks recommended Joe Caroni to take over for him when he left. And Daryl Banks is, if you're a Green Lantern fan, he helmed and practically created the Green Lantern that we know in the 90s. That was all him. Joe Caroni is a fantastic Star Wars artist. He does,
amazing.
he does ridiculous stuff for Star Wars. But so really, it was just that CCAD was just the technique. There was as I've come to find out, working with people and freelancing, that there's a whole lot more to it than just drawing comic books. But then I started to find out that you need to go to comic book conventions. And so for like 2 or 3 years, I was going to comic book conventions, and this is back when Marvel and DC were actually at the shows. And you would have to wait in line 5 or 6 hours just to get them to look at your portfolio. And I did that. I get up there, look at it, and you're like, oh, okay, you need to work on this. You should work on that. Excuse me. Do it again. Oh, work on this, work on that. Do it again. Work on this. Process, repeat that over 2 or 3 years, getting tons of feedback. And then finally, I get up there, and the editor for Marvel's looking at it, and he's flipping through. He's not saying anything. He's just nodding his head. Flipping through it. I'm like, all right. In my head, I'm like, this is it. About to get signed up, baby. It's going down right now. Had them, janky little flip phones. My mom was on speed dial. He shut my book and said, why don't you come to the back with me? And, I was an arrogant little kid at that time. I looked back at everybody else like, I'll check y'all. I may or may not be back, and go in the back. He's looking at my portfolio again. He's like, man, I remember you. I know you've been through our line several times. I can see that you've improved on a lot of the things that we've asked you to and stuff like that. And you can draw, man. You can tell a story. But in all honesty, your style is too urban for Marvel, and it's not anything that we're looking for right now. And I had no idea what that meant. Like at the moment, like I really wish obviously you can't have the experience that you have now and go back and redo things or whatnot. But that crushed me. and I had no idea what he really meant by it. So I didn't even think at that moment to say, so what does that mean? And I'm just left here with my assumptions. And when I got home and I'm looking at my art and I'm just like, the only thing that I can think of is that my black people look black, my Asian people look Asian, and my Latinos look Latino. I went to a school where I was surrounded by all these people. So to me, when I'm drawing a book, I mean, my book takes place in Columbus. So I want to draw what I see, what I live, what I breathe, what I experience. And so to me, I'm just thinking that's normal. But at that time, classification wise, I guess it wasn't. And again, I'm not 100% because I didn't ask. So I have a rule that I made, over experience was I can only let myself be down about something for a day. Then I need to get up and move on from it. And that happened with my friend Trevor, who also is attending the school, who is kicking all types of butt in the toy industry right now. And got me back up. And I just decided, well, I'm going to make comic books myself, and I'll make Marvel come to me with my urban style and ask me to draw comic books. And in some sideway way, here we are in 2018, 2019. I draw Upper Deck Marvel sketch cards for Marvel Comics now, and I make my own comic books.
Nice. That's awesome, man. I mean, there's so many ways to respond to that sort of feedback, and you just sort of said, okay, well, I'm going to stick to what I know and the stories I want to tell. And you've certainly found a market for it. I want to shut up and let my co-host ask some questions.
No, listening to that, like something that I think we've talked about a couple times before on the podcast, but like your story and so many stories like it, where, people end up with a career doing what it is they love to do. And I mean, it's such a rare thing to find, I think, that your bread and butter is what's paying your bills. You know what I mean? And so it's like so many of those stories, when you look back on sort of the origin stories and those turning points, whether good or bad, like you can pinpoint, you can relate it to sort of to people. Yeah. You've got that 6th grade teacher who, depending on how you look at it, is how the ball got rolling. Like the whole dream could have been shot down if you had a different 6th grade teacher.
That's true. That is true.
The whole thing could have been different. Your life could be different for better or for worse right now if it wasn't for that experience with the editor, the Marvel editor. You know what I mean? And who knows, like I mean, what kind of fulfillment and things that you get to do now, sort of working your own publishing side and everything. Like you're making what you want to be making, instead of what someone else is telling you to make. And that's that could be a good thing, that could be a bad thing, who knows. but the point is, like that went the way it went, and it motivated you allowed it to motivate you, I think. Looked for that and went after it. But man, the relationships that you've had with even just a couple of people, and how that has shaped into the success that you're enjoying today, is something that I like to think about. That I like to think about those people.
I didn't even, like, those are very good points, because like I honestly, I never thought about that. Like, if I had a different 6th grade teacher that didn't embrace that didn't pay attention to the things that we were doing outside of our academics, like how long would it have taken me to get into that or figure out that I didn't want to do animation? So
I gotta say, my favorite part of the story is I've never heard anyone speak an ill word about anyone from Rhode Island.
I know. I've never heard anything bad about Rhode Island. I'm just like, you're just trying to keep me in Cleveland. I don't want to stay here.
Yeah, it's so good. That's such a great part of the story.
Well, we badmouthed Florida last week, so we've moved on to Rhode Island.
It's all good. So I'm curious now, like, I mean, you can kind of read into some of the Marvel editor, some of the guys' comments, and you can kind of assume what you want about it. Maybe he was totally on board with your style, but he just knew the big wigs or the powers that be. That's not what they're looking for. Right. And really, it doesn't matter now. But how does that you know, with those comments now, having gotten that feedback that long ago or however many years ago, how do you view all of the diversity out there now that's, you know, literally the biggest blockbuster movies that are coming out and are MCU films? You know, having heard that then, does it make you appreciate what's coming out on the big screen now more? Or have you ever maybe not necessarily viewed it that way because it was the comic book world versus, you know, the silver screen?
Oh no, I definitely appreciate what's coming out on the screen now. I know a lot of people have issues with the gender swapping or the race swapping of characters and things like that, aka legacy characters. I honestly don't care. I think that type of thing, whether it is written well or not, provides further opportunity for it to be trash, further opportunity for it to be good. But either way, at the end of either one of those roads, it opens up more doors. It gets Marvel, DC, Image looking and saying, all right, so we know this is what people are asking for, but they don't want it this way. So where can we get it from? Where can we go for it? Or smaller studios that do not have the Marvel or Image budget, they start looking at smaller places and in Artist Alley and things like that for things that they can maybe take a property and make it bigger or something like that. Anthony Piper, a very well-known artist who I have watched his entire struggle on Facebook. That man is now picked up by 50 Cent, and his what is it? His cartoon, his comic book is now going to be a cartoon that 50 Cent is going to be an executive producer of. And I've watched this kid hustle and grind on Facebook. Like, he went from making these cartoon shorts to, you know, doing freelance work, to doing hip hop covers. And then finally he got a job at Marvel. And then that job at Marvel turned to a writing gig at Marvel. And it took to a coloring gig at Marvel. And he was doing all types of stuff at Marvel. Then he was working in animation behind the scenes, trying to get his property launched. And then next thing you know, he's saying 50 Cent is about to pick my project up.
Yeah.
Or LaShawn Thomas. And I apologize if I'm pronouncing his name wrong, but I've seen his growth and his process. And just last year, he had his first anime launched on Netflix as an exclusive. But, you know, you see these kiddos in the background working and stuff like that. And when you see those type of things pop up on the radar, it lets me know studios and other, you know, companies, things are looking for these type of products, are looking for these type of projects.
Another thread I'm picking up as we just kind of talk here, and I listen to, so, you know, Mike, I've been getting into sports branding and doing like these like vector, super sleek, crisp mascots and stuff. And I discovered an old Fraser Davidson podcast from like 5 years ago. And he's like one of the foremost sports branding guys now working for ESPN and stuff like that. And so this is a 5-year-old podcast, but one of the things that they asked him was like, how did you break in? How did you break in? How did you get through all of the gatekeepers of, athletic directors, art directors, and all this stuff? And he said, I just kept doing the thing that I wanted to be doing if I were already in that field. So like, he didn't have a sports branding portfolio, so he just made up projects pretending to be doing like it as though he had real clients doing sports branding. He just kept doing it as though he were already in the industry. And that's what ESPN saw. And now he's done stuff for Nike and ESPN. But that's what kind of you did with your art, the examples that you've just mentioned. These people just kept doing the thing that they wanted to be doing, whether they were getting paid for it or not, for long enough to build a strong portfolio of it and to be able to now show people and say, this is what I want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's how Upper Deck reached out to me. I just was posting up my artwork on Instagram and going about my business. And then all of a sudden I saw Zach Bethesda was following me. He had the Upper Deck logo. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? And I go over to his page. I was like, oh, okay. Art director at Upper Deck. That's cool. All right, so he liked the art. And then 3 hours later, I get an email from him asking me to do my first Marvel comic premiere card line. I'm like, are you serious? He's like, are you interested? I'm like, you dang right, I'm interested. Absolutely. So yeah, I just keep working and posting up stuff. And it's a hustle for me though, man. It's like I teach art in an after school program. I teach art for Pigtown Artworks. doing the comic books. I still do freelance work as well, plus my own comic book work and stuff like that. So it's a compilation of a lot of different art projects. It's just like, I'm not a greedy person. Just as long as honestly, I'm not going to say no to money, but but as long as I can pay my bills and we're good and we can put food, I am fine. Like, that's all I need at the end of the day.
And a few new action figures.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course, an action figure, 1 or 2 action figures a month, not greedy.
Awesome. Well, let's take a quick break here. We will circle back. Want to hear about sort of what's going on today, what kind of sits under the umbrella of FSK, and then maybe if you could talk a little bit about just like the world in comics right now, like what's going on, and that question you posed the other day on social, like, are comics dying and why you think so and all that. So we'll take a little break, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. We'll be right back.
All right, cool.
Thanks, man. So, you sort of gave us a little bit of your history and some college years and stuff, and then how you sort of launched Freestyle Komics. How many books are you guys producing right now?
We have published 20 comic books right now under Freestyle Komics, and we were on track until Corona.
Yeah.
But I think we still pull it off. But we were on track to release 8 more books this year, plus 3 trades.
How many titles is that?
We would be up to a total of 8 titles.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then Short Fuse, is that the media group that sits underneath?
Yes, sir. That's the publisher.
Okay, gotcha. Very cool. So you posted something on social the other day. You put it out to your fellow creative friends talking about sort of the current climate of comics, if you will. And the whole comics are dying thing, like you said, is something that even me not really being into comics, that's something I've heard off and on for a lot of years.
Yes.
Before the MCU took off, and then the MCU took off, and then everybody was into comics. Kendall actually has a hypothesis that there was a whole contingency of people who were pretending that they were once comic book nerds.
Yeah. I think it's a beautiful little full circle thing for a lot of people, that back in the day you had the actual comic book nerds, and I think that they were kind of few and far between, and you had a lot of people making fun of them, right? And so fast forward to a golden age of comic book films, and now all of a sudden you've got all these people who are saying how big they used to be into comic books. I am certain that there's a lot more people saying that they used to be into comic books than there are actual people who used to be into comic books. That's my guess there. And the beautiful full circle part of that is that you had the pencil neck geeks, right, who were into comic books back in the day, getting made fun of, now are the only ones who can truthfully tell everyone else that they actually were still into comic books, and they're now the cool ones, and the ones that used to make fun of them are the posers who are pretending like they used to be into comic books. That's my theory. That's my working theory.
What's your take on that, Watson?
Dig it.
Does that feel true?
I think people just like cool stuff, and it was real geeky and dorky for us back in the day, and they're like, fast cars and sports was the thing back then. So, I could just see somebody who was like this big dynamic football player, like, oh, that Spider-Man comic does look kind of cool, but then a girl walked past, like, oh, it's stupid. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah.
I think this era of geekdom has definitely opened up the door for some people. But I hear that line a lot. Oh, I used to be into comic books, or I used to be a big time comic book collector, and I don't want to be a gatekeeper sometimes, but I hear it so many times, so many.
So it's hard the world of comics, and I got a buddy that has a really nice shop in Lima, Ohio, Alter Ego Comics. Shout out to those guys. But I imagine their business really took off in those years where the MCU was exploding. Do you think it did? Has it plateaued? Do you think it's going down? What was your argument, or what were some of the thoughts going into that post? And then how did people respond?
Well, I hate hearing that because I keep asking people, where's the evidence of it? Like, and don't tell me that, well, the sales are so low, but all their sales are still positive. Do you even know how it works for them when they sell and make comic books? Like when Marvel and DC and Image make comic books and they sell them to Diamond, those books are already bought. Those books are already paid for. Marvel, they made their money already. Then Diamond sells those books to the comic book shops. Then the comic book shops have those books there. Every one of those books have been paid for by Diamond and the comic book shops, so they got their money. So where are you telling me that comic books are dying out besides some up and down sales that happen in any industry? I've been hearing about comic books have been dying for like the last 25 years. When is it going to die? It's not going to die now. Comic books have the biggest movie of all time, an all-time movie record. I mean, at least 6 of the movies in the top 10 are comic book movies.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hear that nonsense. A couple years ago, there was a book because I did some research on new characters and stuff coming out, but I didn't realize they made a sequel to Big Trouble in Little China as a comic book. They did it in a comic book, and that sold over 500,000 copies.
Wow.
I just don't see where comic books are dying outside of the fact that yes, they are doing some things that people don't want them to do. They are rehashing. The summer event has now become the seasonal event, big crossover event or whatnot. They're doing a lot of variant covers and things like that. Well, people are still buying these things. Just like I think people need to stop comparing comic book sales to the 90s because that's not going to happen again for a while. I think it can happen again, but it's not happening anytime soon. So any comparison to books that sold in the 90s, i.e. the X-Men #1, Jim Lee, which sold over 1 million copies, that's not happening anytime soon.
It's a different context.
Yeah, it's a different context. That was the Michael Jordan flu game-winning shot. Like, it's not happening again for another, 20, 30 years until a property of that level can affect us. But comic books are still selling. Indies are still out here making comic books. Studios are looking at comic books to make movies. I didn't know The Green Mile was a freaking comic book. The Road to Perdition is a freaking comic book.
Yep.
And don't even get me if we're just talking about comic books in America, don't get me talking about manga. Mm-hmm. That's still a comic book. It's a Japanese comic book, but it's a comic book.
That's a great point. I don't think people realize, take Robert Kirkman in The Walking Dead, for example. They think of it as an AMC TV show and didn't realize that the book was had already been out for years and years before episode 1 of a show ever came out. So much of the popular culture that people already consume, they're thinking about comics on such a unilateral level of just the book, and they're not considering graphic novels of the things that were created from comics or graphic novels.
Yeah, graphic novels are selling like crazy. Now, excuse me. I think comic book shops and distributing comic book stuff, that definitely needs to be looked at again. Like, how can we do this better? Because there's a whole situation with Diamond not only being able to pay 25% of what it owes the big studios, and that's not going to work. Like, this whole thing of Diamond being the gatekeeper for distributing all these comic books, that's not going to work anymore. I don't even know if Diamond's still going to be around when things get back up and running. So I think that looking at how comic books are sold to the shops definitely has to be looked at again. Because for us indies making our own books, it's hard. It's hard to make a profit when you sell from a comic book shop. Because I got nothing against comic book shops. I get it. You got these books sitting there, and if I ain't got an audience, my book is not moving. There have been plenty of shops that have given me an opportunity that liked the book, that wanted the book in their stores, or just wanted to give me a chance. And until I send people into that shop, it's just sitting there taking up space. And they already paid for that book. Yeah. So it took me a little bit to understand that I'm the one that generates that audience. Now, it's great when you have comic book shops like Comic Book Town, i.e. for one, and that advocates for comic books. They have a whole section like not in the back, not under books. They have a wall, 2 rows, 4 independent comic books. My brother Victor Dandridge, his logo for Vantage In-House Productions is on their wall with all the other logos for other comic companies. Now, I appreciate that so much. And I know every comic book shop isn't going to do that. It's great when they do, but I understand how it works. And it's my job, like I said, to get people to go into that store. So I definitely got to figure out something, because right now I get books in the store and I'm just happy to have them there just as on my own personal creed, like, oh, I got comic books there. It's nice to have that there, but I definitely need to formulate a plan that's going to be more dollar incentive to have them there that works for me and works for the comic book shop. But a lot of the responses were, yeah, comic books aren't dying. But then probably like every 3 or 4 comments, you got that one person saying they're dead, they're done. And
Yeah.
I was like, I was talking to this one person who's like, because they kept gender swapping my characters, and like, why am I paying for these gender swapping tropes? And I was like, hey, I can get how that can be frustrating. I can get how that may not be a good story or whatnot, but I've actually sat down and read Miles Morales Spider-Man, Miss Marvel Kamala, and Mighty Thor. Those are actually really good stories.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they swap these characters out, but those stories are really good. And for me personally, the Miles Morales story was incredible. The way they flipped the Uncle Ben origin on its head. Like, oh my God.
Let's also
Like,
not pretend like they haven't done everything else they could with these characters
right.
before they tried that. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like each character had one arc ever, and then they're like, all right, we got nothing else. Let's change the gender. Like,
how many times has your favorite hero already died and come back to life in a different universe or iteration? So
Right. And then I know a lot of people are upset, like, that the X-Men are now practically unkillable. So what's the pull in there? The pull is that the story and the art's freaking amazing. Like, how the X-Men can be unkillable for the next 10 years because they've been crapped on for the last 10 years.
yeah.
Like, they have been the franchise. X-Men and Spider-Man have been the franchise carrying Marvel Comics until they made these movies and made, honestly, Captain America and Iron Man and Avengers, who are their D-listers, they're A-listers now. The movies did that, not the comic books. It's always been about the X-Men and Spider-Man.
you need X-Men to be unkillable now too, because they're the next 10 years worth of heroes in the MCU.
Yeah, exactly.
They're the next wave when RDJ retires and when Captain Evans and all Steve Rogers and all these guys go away. It's gonna be the next wave is Fantastic Four and X-Men in the movies. So
that meme that came out after Endgame that says the moment you realize that the snap would have caused so much radiation that mutants would have popped up all over the world, and people are like, oh!
All right, here we are. It's time for the X-Men.
I'm definitely looking forward to figuring out how they put them in there. I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping some of the rumors are true.
I've got a favorite theory. I've seen very few theories so far, but one of my favorite that a fan threw out was Ultron, and I forget the name, Sokovia. That Doctor Doom will emerge from the rubble of Sokovia in Ultron. That's been my favorite theory that I've heard so far, that would be his origin and why he decided to finally pop up on the radar. I'm good with whatever. I trust Marvel at this point.
Yeah, I don't give a lot of franchises the unbelievable ticket for just whatever goes. Fast and Furious definitely has my unbelievable ticket. That means I'm swiping that ticket in and I'm sitting down and y'all can do whatever it is. I am there. But Marvel Comics, unbelievable ticket, unbridled support, 23 films, averaging $1 billion per movie. I'm there.
So they've been doing a really hard push to the digital format. Are people really reading comics on their iPads, or do they like to have a good old book in their hand? What do you think?
I like both. I'm looking for this new book called Excellence right now. I'm trying to find the floppies. I can't find them. I'm about to download them digitally so I can have them because the book is that good. And I realize I carry like there's like 3 or 4 comic books that I carry with me everywhere I go, just like because I'm transitioning over to this iPad for drawing. So I like to have some stuff to flip through before I draw. But I think there's a lot of people reading comic books digitally. I think comic book sales wise, it's divided to so many different markets. Like there's your singles, people that like to buy single issue floppy comic books, 22 page, 24 page comic books. That's what they live and breathe and die by. They want 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. Then you got the people that do nothing but graphic novels. I don't want a floppy. I want a trade. I want an album. I want 4 to 6 issues in one thing. Then you got the people that will buy just the digital books, which is why I absolutely love selling to a comic person, because then there's that anomaly who buys 2 of those 3 or all of those 3. So you got like 4 different customers there that you can pitch to. Which is one of the things on our website on shortfusemediagroup.com. If you buy the physical book, you get the digital copy of the book for free. Our books are $4. The digital's $2. You might as well just buy the physical, and get the digital for free. Get both of them.
Yeah. You're huge on social media, man. I love when you go to conventions and you take pictures of people that bought a bunch of hot shots. So just plug all of your social media stuff. How do people find you, follow you personally, Freestyle Komics, all of the things?
Okay. Well, Art of Mike Watson for me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Freestyle Komics on all 3 of those social media platforms. Shortfusemediagroup.com for our website store for t-shirts, action figures, merch, comic books, digital books, and things like that. Chat and Draw, which is on Facebook. The Good, the Bad, and Nerdy, which is also on Facebook and Twitter. And I do artwork through Picktown Artworks on Facebook.
This guy's drawing. This guy's talking comic books. This guy's hosting podcasts. I mean, what doesn't he do?
I don't sleep.
Dude, I will log into social media or Facebook, and it's like 2 a.m, and you're still up drawing and doing a streaming share of working on a page or something. You make me feel bad about myself.
Oh man, don't let Corey Hubble fool you. This man is out here putting out quality work. He can't post on social media because he's getting the big projects that say you can't show this stuff. All right, you can't show this until we say you can release it. He's getting those big boy projects.
I love you, man. It's so good. So you and I had a good chat the other day, which is sort of what inspired this. A lot of people come to us, you and I, with ideas. The next person has the idea for the next best-selling, it's going to be on Ellen, children's book, or they have an idea for a graphic novel, and I reached out to you and you offered some really good coaching. So when you're out there like talking and teaching and you run into these kids that like to draw, like, it's tough nowadays when the parents or they ask like, art school, not art school, can they really make a living doing this? Like, what's your advice to someone who's listening or watching our podcast and they love comics, they love superheroes, they draw, they write? It's a tough world out there. So what are you telling people? What are you telling people when they're interested in this space and this art thing and art school and all that?
I tell them, you think you love it. You don't know that you love it yet. Especially kids. I have a lot of talented kids in my art class, and I have a lot of inspired kids in my art class. And I always do like a end of the session, like end of the day wrap up with each parent about what their kid is doing. And then I let them know, like, hey, your kid is good. And at some point, they're going to have to make a decision about if this is something that they really want to do. And if it is, these are the kind of like the steps that you need to talk to, like, get them ready and get them in that mindset now. Or like, your kid has a lot of energy. They're doing really good in the classroom. It's like following along with me, and I can tell that they're inspired, but they still need to work on this or that or whatnot. But people that come up to me talking, I know I get excited about somebody that has it doesn't have to be a good portfolio. I get excited about somebody that has a portfolio, presentation wise, or somebody that has a book. And then in that book, or the items that, like, even on their business card, that I see that they have social media, or excuse me, or I flip to the back of their book and they have, this was a Kickstarter book, and these are all the people that helped me put the Kickstarter book together. Because then I'm looking at that person and I'm like, oh, you already have half the tools. Like, I can have a conversation with you that can go past this because you've got half of it now. My favorite people, and I love them, are the ones that come up and you know, that I've been drawing for years, but you know, they haven't put an actual book together or anything like that. And I always open up my conversation with them because they want me to give them feedback. I'm like, are you good with me being honest? Because I don't believe in lying or puffing you up. And I look at their stuff, I'm like, you already know you can draw, man. You didn't come to me because you can draw. You came to me because you want to know what I think about your artwork and what you think needs to be done to make it better. I try not to be an asshole about it, or excuse me, I'm sorry, a jerk about it
It's all
or
good.
whatnot. But I want to be straightforward, and I don't want to waste their time. And that's the best thing you can do. One editor for DC was looking at my portfolio, man, and he was flipping through, and he was like, "Man, you're really good. You're a good storyteller, and your anatomy is really good and stuff." And then he kind of flipped this one page back and forth and looked at it and was like, "I don't know about that building, though." Kept looking at it, I was like, "That building, I got it. It doesn't look like I could take a poop in that building." But he used the other word. I need to look like that building needs to look so good that I could walk in there and take a crap. That's what that building needs to look like. And I knew I needed to work on my buildings.
Yeah, but leave it to DC to focus on all the wrong things.
But he gave me positive feedback and he gave me straightforward feedback. And I knew immediately from that what he meant. Like that building, my lines were crooked. That building just wasn't looking good. And when you're presenting yourself, you should present the best pages that you have. And I learned from that or whatnot. So I appreciate people that have their stuff together that already has a project that they put together on their own or whatnot. And, you know, now they're asking for some like real feedback on what to do. But I also know there's people that don't have their stuff together and have no idea what to do, and they're coming over for advice. And that, as Corey said, him and I were talking about that, and just trying to figure out, because you're there to work, you're there to promote your brand and things like that, and you don't want to waste your time. But it's just the same way I have to try to assess how to sell to somebody. Is this going to be a soft sale? Is this going to be a hard sale? Which one is which one is it going to be?
Yeah.
It's the same way you got to do with people that are coming up asking you questions for feedback, critiques, or, you know, wanting to get signed to a publisher. There's one guy, after we did a panel, gave me his comic book, asked me to read it so I can give him some coaching on some artists that he could possibly use. And I got home, and it was like a week later, he emailed me asking me if I read it, and I had not read it yet or whatnot. And then before I could even respond to that email, all this stuff broke out. And then he sent me an email like, "Please respond to my email. This is urgent." And I responded. I was like, "Yeah, so you realize there's a lot of stuff going on right now, so I haven't had time to look at anything. How about we wait a couple months and just chill the heck out, man?" Like,
Yeah.
I could see if like nothing was happening in our world and I hadn't
Yeah.
responded to you, but you've been watching the news, man.
Yeah.
Like, so, you know, I get a little bit of the, I'll say energetic types as well.
But this weird life cycle occurs where you were the kid drawing on the back of menus at restaurants, and then you had the 6th grade teacher, or for me, it's Gary Wells, my art teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And then they instill like, yeah, you can if you work at it. And then you find yourself at art school, and then it's all about, am I actually going to get a job doing this? And then you find a way to actually earn a living with art and only art. And now people start approaching you because you are the only light that they see.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, and whether it's a kid, and I mentor a few teenage, you know, high school or college age artists, but it's not really them that has the questions, it's their parents. And
Mm-hmm.
and they want to know how real this career in the arts is. And they're looking at me like, should we or should we not pay for this art college tuition, or all those questions. And now you, Mike Watson, are in the position of that, in a small way, that Marvel editor, and you have the opportunity to impart some advice on somebody. And I get that feeling of like, I don't want to BS you. Like,
Yeah.
And like you said, you described, so much of it is about the intangibles. Like, have they put the work in? Do they already have a social media following behind this idea or this character or this book? Have they put a portfolio together? Do they have a crisp looking portfolio? If they've done all those things, and even if the story is lacking or the art is bad, I'm like, they have the soft skills that you can't teach. I would rather hire somebody that's got that much ambition and entrepreneurial sort of mindset But yeah, you now in the life cycle, you find yourself in this position where people are looking to you and you're like, it
Dude,
feels like a lot of pressure.
that's so crazy, because when I was a kid looking at comic books, I was like, man, this artist is trash. I could draw better than this guy. Like, look at this art, sucks. Like, how did this person even get hired to draw this comic book? And I'm sitting here in the 8th grade and I can outdraw him. And then, you know, saying all that stuff, you're like, because that person had the soft skills to get that job, because that person can make a deadline every single time that you give them the book, because the person that can draw fantastic is late on the book and they need to get it finished. And they went to somebody that was a guaranteed to get it done without complaining and had the portfolio and stuff like that.
My
so
man, how many people did we go to school with at Columbus College of Art and Design that their art was stellar, but you knew they were never going to make it because they couldn't look you in the eye, they couldn't shake a hand, they couldn't get a business card made, and their art was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's so sad, but that's just, it's part of it. It's equal parts like skill and then some of that willingness to sort of that attitude, whatever it takes, put in the hours, all that stuff.
Yeah, but that's the stuff that the school is catching up on. But there, I mean, there's still things. There's still tons of things or whatnot. But it's the things that, you know, you learn in internships. It's the things that you learn at while you have a job at the school or whatnot, or going to go talk to professionals and asking them questions and things like that. That those little things that you have to have those tools. Like for comic books, and as Corey said, I'm always online. Either Facebook Live and showing my conventions or talking about whatever art I'm working on or whatnot, because I'm trying to build my audience, because I'm trying to get people to. So here's the thing: I could have, you know, like if you read my book and you thought it was total crap, but you still bought it because you like me. Good, I appreciate that. That. There's like two kind of buyers.
Everyone that listens to this podcast, thank you. Just keep downloading it.
So like there's like two versions of that person. A person that you can sell to and just says and happens to say, well, you're a cool person, I like you, I want to support you. They'll buy your book that one time, but they'll never buy it again. They'll never speak about it again because you won them over in that moment. Then there's the person that you win over who says, oh, your book's okay, but you're really awesome and I want to keep buying your book. I want to keep finding ways to support you. Then you got the person who's genuine, who's actually a comic book fan, that says, oh, I love you and I love your book. Or the person that, yeah, you're not that cool, the book's good though. And so like there's all these things you pick up, like Sean Mack, who is the operations director at Short Fuse. Like that's like our thing, like that we keep trying to tell people. Like people have to like you. They have to be into you. What's it? Mark Miller. I think Mark Miller quoted this on Facebook. Like, you will get fired if people don't like you and don't want to work with you. You will get fired for the less talented person that everybody likes. Like, that's a thing. Like, people, it's about who you know and the relationships that you build and make. And right now, I hardly have any relationships, and you know, I'm trying to reach out and make those and build upon the relationships that I have now. Like this past couple of weeks, I've learned. That's the thing, man. You keep learning stuff about all this stuff. Just when I think I have a handle on social media, we get put in the epidemic, and now I'm learning all this other stuff about social media and engagement and how to get people. And like, so when I put up that comic books are dying post, dude, I got so much engagement, interaction on that. And I'm looking at the people who are responding and commenting on it. And then I put up one of my pictures. Nothing. And then I put up another post where I got all this engagement. Like we did the Man of Steel panel online. So much engagement. So I'm looking and I'm like, so you guys and gals are seeing the post, but now it's not a matter of, you see it. I know it's popping up in there because look at where I'm getting engagement here and there, but it's a matter of what's popping up. Yeah. So instead of, like, I've been putting up stuff to keep up. Like I'm working on this, the mixed character things that Victor started on my show, whatnot. And I'm getting engagement from that. But at the same time, I'm trying to keep the posts coming, but then I'm trying to find that, all right, what's that meat post? What's the post where I'm going to get a lot of people commenting and liking and sharing? Like I'm trying, like, so like when I did that Comics Are Dying, I saw a bunch of people talking about it. It was really getting on my nerves. And so I went on Google and I was like, let me search for comics is dying images. And I saw they had an image, a cool one with like Jim Lee pictures of all these characters dying and whatnot. So I took that image and then I replicated in Photoshop with my comic book characters. And then I repeated the letters up there and I put that up there to get, so that thing, like that is what got shared around and commented about everybody, not the Marvel piece, but my characters in that conversation piece or whatnot. And so then somebody says, well, who are they? I'm like, oh, that's those are all characters from Freestyle Komics.
Well, we get it, man. We're from the middle. We're trying to bust the Facebook and Instagram algorithms. But let me just tell you, to your point about, you know, getting seen and getting more, getting yourself out there. We can promise you about 14 people. Yeah.
I'm there, man. I take it.
14 new people are going to learn about you based on this podcast. So when it drops on Wednesday, you share this everywhere. And
I will. It's one day at a time, man.
I'm teasing. It's a lot more than that. And we now have listeners all over the world, so we're pretty excited about it. Dylan, and Kendall, we have about 8 minutes left. Do you guys have any final questions for Mike?
I like that you guys were talking about, you know, hard work and grind and all that, because it's certainly true. And the soft skills element is hard because some people will learn that and some people won't. But sometimes you gotta give yourselves credit for a little bit of foresight and kind of seeing what's out ahead of you and making the right picks. Because you were talking about that comic book artist that you were in 6th grade saying his artwork is trash. It helped that he wasn't drawing in a multi-billion-dollar industry at the time. You know, like could Tim Cook go start at an Apple store part-time and become CEO now? No, it's not going to happen. Tim Cook's not rising up from an Apple store to become CEO again. Clearly he's a good CEO, but there's also timing, sometimes a little luck, but also a lot of foresight and good decision-making and wisdom in there too. And you guys got to give yourself some credit for that, because yes, it's soft skills. It's certainly hard work and grind, but like sometimes you got to get out of the head of the curve. And sometimes that's, you know, for anybody in any industry, you know, if you're in, you know, an old industry, you're probably not going to rise to the top anymore. So maybe you're looking at what's on the cutting edge. What can I do next? What's a little different? You're describing the same things with social media. You know, there's a little bit of testing. How do I get out ahead of this? What content is piquing more interest? Why is it working? What is it about it? And I think there's a lot in there that you've got to both give yourself credit for, because you both do that and you do it well. At least from the stories I've heard, and then from Corey, from the work and stuff I've seen from him. So yeah, I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit, because there is some of that, and people need to look out ahead and see, where do I have opportunities to jump out ahead of the crowd here, with what I'm already good at, or with what I already enjoy doing.
Appreciate that. Respect.
Yeah. Thanks, bro. Kendall, anything?
I think maybe if for no other reason to give another opportunity here, one thought that I've had, and I'm not the only one to have this thought, is when you look at the big screen and the movies and the films and things that are coming out, and you just, sometimes I just wonder to myself, like, where's all the fresh stuff? Where's all the new content? And the answer, I think, from this discussion is very clear. Like it's there. There is new stuff. There is fresh stuff. There are writers and illustrators and people who are grinding and pumping out new storylines and new characters and things of that nature. And honestly, that whole world that you, Mike, are part of is the world where sort of the next great ideas are coming from. So they're not coming out of a vacuum. They're coming from people like you. And so that's where where I think the great ideas are. And then sort of like the big wigs and the major filmmakers and things like that, that's what they're pulling from. So if you're like me and people are looking for fresh material, they're looking for new stuff. They want to see new characters, not just rehashed old ones with new story arcs and things of that nature. I want to give you a chance. Like, people already like you listening to you right now. Like you sell yourself.
I told you guys he was awesome.
without even trying to do it. And I think that people are going to want to support you just from hearing you talk for 2 minutes. But
Amen.
But the other side of that, let's talk about the product. So like Hot Shots is a big deal for you.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that. Like why, what is Hot Shots? Let's open people up into that world. Talk about that and let's let's send some people that way.
But do it in 4 minutes.
Do it in
Okay.
4 minutes. Yeah.
Hot Shot's a young man in college trying to prove to his girlfriend he's not cheating on her without really as a superhero, while not getting kicked out of college for said reason of being a superhero. It's a semi-true story based off of my time at college, excluding the superhero part. Takes place in Columbus, Ohio at CCAD, and it really started during a breakup, a very serious breakup for me. And not that I got diagnosed, but when I really look back at that time, I felt like that was one time in my life that I was actually depressed. Like, I was a resident advisor, so I would go outside, I would do my job, all smile and laughs, and help other people go to class, and then I'd come back in my room and I'd be crying on the floor in my room. So I wanted to create a story that dealt with a breakup and the hero not getting the girlfriend. What is that experience like, not getting her back? How would he move through that? How would the feels and things go through that? And Hot Shots very much so inspired by Invincible from Image Comics, Naruto, Wolverine, and Spider-Man. And as we are 10 issues in, I have the book loosely plotted to 100 issues and plotted all the way out to issue 50. I have just written issues 10, 11, 12, and 13. 10 is laid out, and I'm starting the pencils on 10 now, and I am laying out issue 11 right now. And Hot Shot is the book that started all the rest of the books. We have 5 other titles, and we will be this year expanding to 2 more titles on top of that, and it's called the Verse. So all these books are going to be coming together for our own Avengers styled collaboration in Hot Shot issue 25.
And issue 6, is it issue 6 that has a really
Issue
cute
6
cover?
has Corey Hovell's cover on there, and it is still a good seller for us.
No. Can you just share a sneak peek of your screen right now? Show people what you're working on.
Right now, yeah.
Yeah. Are you allowed?
Yeah, I'm allowed. I'm the publisher, so.
I was gonna say, who's gonna tell him no? He's the studio.
Yeah, just share your screen if you can.
I'm just.
While you're pulling that up, how do you feel about Kevin Smith being this unofficial spokesman for the comic community?
Hey man, I love Kevin Smith, man. I love that guy's passion and his vigor. I'm for it. I'm here for Kevin Smith. Cool. Yeah, this is what my intern is coloring right now.
Nice.
This is issue 3 of Emerald Quest, drawn by James P.A., pencils and inks, and Sammy is doing the colors. Xander and Sammy are doing the flats, but Sammy's doing the colors on it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching on YouTube, this guy knows what he's talking about. Freestyle Komics knows what they're talking about. Short Fuse Media knows what they're talking about. Follow Mike Watson on all of the channels. Mike, this has been a pleasure catching up with you, my friend. I miss hanging out with you. I miss your energy. It's good seeing you.
It's good to see you too, man.
Oh man, it's awesome. I'm trying to think of like how can I lob a question here right at the end? Like, tell us the most underrated superhero in your opinion.
The most underrated superhero in my opinion. Dang, that's a good question. In mainstream.
Yeah, mainstream.
I'm gonna have to go with underrated. I'm gonna have to go with Invincible because not a lot of people know about that book.
That's true, and I love the art.
That book is a game changer for. There are no solid yeses and nos. There's no solid right and wrong.
Is it Ryan Motley?
Ryan Otley, right? Artist, and Corey Walker was the artist first. He comes back now and again, and Robert Kirkman, writer.
All right. Hey, thanks for your time, man. It's been awesome hanging out with you. This has been episode 45 of From the Middle. Stay safe out there. God bless. Don't get the coronas. And we'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks, Mike.